This is KSUT Public Radio. Regional news is next. A federal judge recently ordered the U.S. Department of Agriculture to scale back its use of pesticides across all western states. As the Mountain West News Bureau's Caleb Radel reports, environmental groups say this ruling is a big step toward protecting rangeland wildlife.
For decades, the USDA has been spraying millions of acres to kill grasshoppers, which munch away at grazing grounds cattle rely on. Now the federal agency has to prioritize non-chemical methods of pest control. It also has to be more open with the public about when and where it's spraying. Sharon Salvaggio is with the Xerces Society, a conservation group that helped bring the lawsuit to limit pesticide use.
They can kill other rangeland insects, not just grasshoppers. Multiple bumblebee species in the West are already at risk. They've already disappeared from places that they used to occupy.
She says the ruling helps protect bees, butterflies, and wildlife that eat insects, like the greater sage grouse. The USDA has 2 years to complete a new environmental impact statement of its Western spray program. For the Mountain West News Bureau, I'm Caleb Radel in Reno.
It's been a smoky summer across the Rocky Mountain West, with multiple large wildfires burning across the region, and that smoke poses serious health risks for everyone. But as Aspen Public Radio's Sarah Torrey reports for the Rocky Mountain Community Radio Coalition, those risks are magnified when someone is pregnant.
When a person is pregnant, they're essentially breathing for two. That means their respiratory system is working at the far edge of its capacity as it tries to get more oxygen into the body for the fetus, while trying to get rid of the extra CO2 that the fetus is creating.
And so you're really kind of at baseline operating at the extreme of your heart and lungs ability.
That's Jonathan Hirschberg, a maternal fetal medicine and critical care specialist at University of Colorado. He says that extra stress on the respiratory system puts pregnant people at higher risk for complications from illnesses like asthma, COVID-19, and the flu.
When you expose those people to wildfire, which we know is a trigger for respiratory illness and for asthma, it tends to make those folks sicker. And they're kind of what we would consider a vulnerable population for wildfires or in really any environmental respiratory illness.
A recent study also shows that exposure to certain kinds of wildfire smoke increases the chance of preterm birth. But Hirschberg says more research is needed to determine the exact cause. For Aspen Public Radio, I'm Sarah Torrey.
Regional news continues with a report from Colorado Newsline. Following President Donald Trump's moves to quickly phase out tax credits to support clean energy, pending projects have a tight time frame to start construction before their eligibility expires. In Colorado, Democratic Governor Jared Polis has ordered state agencies to expedite permits for projects that are eligible for those credits. More veterans are getting their health care outside the VA and through the private sector, and that's a change. The VA now says private sector referrals expand access, but as Kyle McKinnon reports for the Colorado Capital News Alliance, veterans and advocates fear they're undermining the specialized care the agency traditionally provides.
95-year-old Bernie Rogoff is a Korean War-era Army veteran who spent his life advocating for fellow service members.
That's my graduating class. I'm the guy in the back, right in the middle in the back with the V8, with the Air Force hat on.
Rogoff led the push for Denver's modern VA Medical Center. It opened in 2018 to serve Colorado's nearly 400,000 veterans with specialized care. But the VA is changing things. Under the Trump administration, the agency is sending more veterans outside the VA to private doctors and clinics to get them seen faster and closer to home through a program called community care. For Rogoff, though, something special that goes beyond health care is at risk.
We have veterans who go to the VA and sit in the atrium just to be among their buddies. Can you imagine what they must feel? It hurts. It hurts me.
VA officials push back on those concerns. Amanda Villa is with VA Eastern Colorado. She says community care is an extension of VA services, not a replacement, especially in a state where many veterans live far from a VA facility.
We have a lot of veterans that are living in rural communities down from Alamosa all the way up to Burlington, Lamar area.
VIA says it's another way to reach veterans who might otherwise go without care.
I don't necessarily see a trend that we're going to completely go out to the community. I think we're always going to have a need for VA care, and we're always going to have a need for community care to be our extender.
That's not how Suzanne Gordon sees it. She's the co-founder of the Veterans Healthcare Policy Institute and says in many parts of Colorado, there aren't enough community providers for veterans to use.
You have 64 counties in Colorado, 53 have shortages of primary care providers.
Gordon adds that Colorado has triple the national average of patients to primary care providers. And she says that VA systems in all states are feeling the effects of moving toward private care, and the consequences won't stop with veterans.
Primary care shortages, mental health shortages are going to worsen. So everybody's going to suffer, not just veterans.
David Ortiz is concerned. He's a former state representative and Army veteran who was paralyzed from the waist down in a helicopter crash in Afghanistan.
If you ask any of my civilian counterparts, any wheelchair users that live with paraplegia that have to deal with private sector healthcare, they can barely get one single chair.
Ortiz says the VA should leave its community care program for times when there are gaps that VA in-house services can't fill. And he worries that substance abuse and suicide rates among veterans will spike if this shift continues. Colorado is already in the top 10 states for veteran suicides. Democratic Representative Chad Clifford is vice chair of the House, State, Civic, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee. He says the VA's move toward private care is creating instability and uncertainty.
We are now creating red tape where people don't even know what kind of care is available.
Clifford says that state lawmakers have no authority over VA policy.
As the General Assembly, we don't have a clue what is coming down the pike. We are sitting on the front lines watching the television just like you.
Veterans in the VA have, so far, been shielded from navigating the everyday civilian's healthcare system, but that could change if privatization continues. For the Korean War-era veteran Bernie Rogoff, that's a mission worth fighting for.
I am concerned for my brothers and my sisters. We are at a precipice. It's a critical moment in our history.
That story comes from Kyle McKinnon for the Colorado Capital News Alliance. Also from the Capital News Alliance, Governor Jared Polis is unveiling his state spending cuts today. They're the final element of the ongoing effort to balance Colorado's budget. And Benta Birkeland brings us the story.
Colorado lawmakers just wrapped up a special session to close part of the state's budget shortfall. Lawmakers eliminated some corporate tax benefits and dipped into the state's reserves. But they left it up to the governor to find several $100 million in spending cuts. Democratic House Speaker Julie McCluskey says there will be tough decisions.
We all share a commitment to protecting public schools. We're going to be hard pressed to avoid cuts in any one particular area. In my conversations so far with the Gov's team, they are turning over every rock.
McCluskey said the state will look at reduced spending for agencies while trying to protect vulnerable populations. The legislature's Joint Budget Committee will review the governor's cuts, but can't block them.
That was Benta Birkeland reporting for the Colorado Capital News Alliance. Content produced by the Colorado Capital News Alliance is funded in part by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Support for local and regional news on KSUT Public Radio also comes from the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority.
Support for public policy reporting comes from the Gay and Lesbian Fund for Colorado, promoting programs designed to ensure all Coloradans have the same opportunity to thrive. More information is online at gayandlesbianfund.org.